Slowly rotating at the edge of deep space, 1,000 kilometers beyond the atmosphere of 21st century Earth, is the Arthur C. Clarke Astronomical Observatory, Starlab. Here, Starlab Research Director Maura Cassidy and scientists and technicians of the International Space Authority watch over the countless stars and planets that fill the silent distances beyond the giant space station. Last week's episode began when Captain Jack Lemus, commanding the Royal British Museum freighter Nile Delta, notified Starlab that he was returning to Earth from the planet Thanatos. Aboard the freighter, the treasures of Tutankhamun, sent to Thanatos 2 weeks earlier as part of a cultural exchange program. Midway between Earth and Saturn, the freighter is boarded by aliens who steal the King Tut floral necklace and take a tissue sample from the face of the boy king's mummy.
A tissue sample? Is Dr. Lomax absolutely certain about that?
He's positive, Dr. Cassidy, and he's holding up a little gold surgical instrument they dropped.
When news of the Nile Delta incident reaches Queen Victoria III, she notifies England's most famous consulting detective, Sonar T. Foom.
Her Majesty requests that we go to Starlab at once and assist in the investigation of this beastly crime.
Meanwhile, on Starlab, SET captains John Graydon and Buddy Griff research the Egyptology section of Starlab's library.
Did you come up with anything?
Yeah. You know that blue and gold bird symbol Captain Lemus described? The one on the tail fin of the alien ship?
Mm-hmm.
We found one just like it on King Tut's ecclesiastical chair.
When Captain Lemus gets here, we should run his visual scanner tapes of the alien ship against the library tapes to see if the symbols match.
And if they do?
If they match, then maybe the aliens aren't aliens after all. Maybe they're Egyptians.
A few minutes later, Sonar T. Foom and his associate Dr. McGuffin Drone arrive at Starlab, and when Maura tells them about John and Buddy's theory...
I think we're going to get on very well indeed, gentlemen. Dr. Drone and myself were discussing a similar hypothesis not more than 15 minutes ago.
All right, suppose these aliens are what you think they are. That still doesn't explain the theft of the necklace or why they took a tissue sample from the mummy.
The necklace is a puzzlement, Maura, but the tissue specimen isn't. It has long been our contention that the Egyptian kings were preserved for only one reason, so that in future their tissue could be rejuvenated for the purpose of monocellular replication. Cloning.
And now, the conclusion of the adventure of the Egyptian necklace, an interplanetary detective story in the Sherlock Holmes tradition on Alien Worlds.
We ran the Egyptology tapes all the way back to the First Dynasty, but we couldn't find a connection with any other civilization. A lot of theories, but nothing definite.
What sort of theories?
Well, some historians think dynastic Egypt may have evolved from ancient Sumeria because of the similarity of their religious deities and astrological calendar.
And a few renegade scholars even hypothesize that the Egyptians were the survivors of Atlantis.
Look, before we get carried away by all these theories, I'd like to know one thing. Aside from religious deities and sky ships, did these civilizations share a common philosophy about where they came from?
Yes, Maura, they did. They all believed they were the children of highly evolved beings who originally came down from the stars.
The Limehouse Express to Starlab Control.
The Limehouse Express? Where do people come up with these names?
Who knows? This is Starlab. Go ahead, Limehouse Express.
Good evening. It's Jerry, isn't it?
That's right. Who are you? What's your position?
My position is that I never state my position.
What's the problem, Limehouse Express?
No problem, Dr. Cassidy. Now, if you don't mind, I wish to speak to Mr. Foom.
Does he know you?
Oh, my, yes. He knows me very well indeed. I'm Professor Moriarty.
England's most famous consulting detective, Sonar T. Foom, and his associate, Dr. MacGuffin Drone, arrive at Starlab to investigate the theft of the King Tut floral necklace from the Royal British Museum freighter Nile Delta. Half an hour later, Starlab Control receives a transmission from the Limehouse Express, a mysterious spacecraft that refuses to give its position.
Have you tried to locate him with a tracer beacon?
He's neutralizing our tracer beacon with a scrambler beam that he's transmitting along with his radio signal. He's too far away for the scanners to pick him up.
Very clever, Moriarty. Very clever indeed.
Nearly as clever as you, eh, Foom?
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, Drone.
No, I suppose not.
Open B channel, Jerry.
Go ahead, Mr. Foom.
So, Professor Moriarty, we meet again.
Ah, my dear Foom, it's so good to hear your voice. Interplanetary crime is so boring without an adversary of your caliber.
What exactly is on your criminal mind?
I'm in the mood for a bit of cat and mouse with you, Foom. So I thought it might interest you to know that the Tutankhamun necklace is in my possession. And the aliens who took it are being held aboard my ship.
You mean the Egyptians who took it, don't you, Moriarty?
Very good, Foom, very good indeed. Well, I see by the old atomic clock on the wall that we've run out of time. I do, however, want to leave you with these inspiring words. Catch me, if you can. Limehouse Express, out.
Limehouse Express, indeed.
Why, does that name mean something?
Moriarty's great-great-grandfather was the most cunning criminal genius of his time. His headquarters were somewhere in the Limehouse section of London. And like his great-great-grandson's spacecraft, the location of the old professor's headquarters was a constant source of mystery.
If the Egyptians are working for Moriarty, why is he holding them prisoner? It just doesn't make sense.
I think it's safe to assume that they were cooperating with Moriarty rather than working for him. It's obvious now that he was using them to get the necklace for himself.
Well, we're right back at the beginning, aren't we?
The beginning? Of course. Mora, you're positively inspirational.
I am?
Indeed you are. Drone, I think it's time we contacted the museum and had a chat with Sir Dorian. Something tells me he knows more about the origins of this case than he thinks he does.
Meanwhile, near Mars, the Limehouse Express, a huge metallic gray flying wing, moves into a parking orbit between the Martian moons of Deimos and Phobos. Imprisoned in a storage compartment near the flying wing's hangar bay are Piratep and Amenhotep, the two extraterrestrial Egyptians responsible for the theft of the necklace.
It was foolish and undignified, Amenhotep. The two of us sitting in Sir Dorian's office, wearing those absurd Earth costumes, trying to deceive him the way the professor eventually deceived us.
Perhaps we can still redeem ourselves. It is apparent from the way the professor talks about this man Foom that they are deadly enemies. If we could reach Starlab and explain to Foom why we need the necklace, he might be sympathetic.
But we'll never reach the hangar bay without a weapon.
We have a weapon, Piratep. A photon pistol. I hid it in my boot as our ship was being taken aboard.
Then you knew the professor was manipulating us. He's coming, Amenhotep. Hide the pistol.
Well, how are the children of the sun this evening?
Why have you brought the necklace here?
I'll be taking it to Anshar in a few hours, and
I thought perhaps you'd like to have one last look at it. Be very careful with it, won't you, my dear?
Amontef, there's only one guard in the corridor.
All right.
What is it?
Take the necklace into the ship. I'll open the launch doors. Amontef, the guards are coming. Take the necklace to stop them.
Piratep!
Stop him, you fools! He has the necklace!
Meanwhile, on Starlab, Sonar T. Foom and Dr. MacGuffin Drone sit in a conference room on G-level, analyzing a video image Sir Dorian has transmitted from the museum's employee index terminal.
Drone, there's something rather curious about this picture of Wilhelmina Hammersmith. Look closely at the eyes. What's your professional opinion?
Well, the left eye is artificial.
Now, look at the ring finger on the left hand. Oh, here, let me magnify it. What do you see?
A deep circular impression, as if a ring had been removed.
A platinum serpent's ring, perhaps?
Great Scott.
Great Scott indeed, my dear Drone. This is not a 70-year-old Egyptologist named Wilhelmina Hammersmith. This is none other than Professor Moriarty himself.
What an extraordinary masquerade.
Yes. Wearing this disguise, Moriarty appears at the museum and presents false credentials. Impressed with these documents, Sir Dorian gives Moriarty a post in the Egyptian Antiquities section. And it is here that he learns the highly confidential facts of the Nile Delta's Thanatos schedule.
Didn't Sir Dorian say that this Hammersmith woman was in his office when the Egyptian couple was there trying to buy the necklace?
Yes, and 2 days later, Wilhelmina Hammersmith Moriarty resigns, and the Egyptian couple are never seen again. Now, let me see. The two Egyptians who boarded the Nile Delta are obviously the same two who were in Sir Dorian's office. When they leave the museum, Moriarty follows them.
Escaping from a prison compartment aboard Professor Moriarty's Limehouse Express, the necklace safely in their possession, Piratep and Amontef dashed to their ship in the hangar bay of Moriarty's huge, metallic gray flying wing.
Take the necklace into the ship. I'll open the launch doors.
But as the thick metal doors slide open, they trigger a series of security alarms. And before Piratep can reach the ship, a squad of Moriarty's guards enter the hangar bay and open fire with laser rifles.
Piratep!
As Piratep falls, blood streaming from her face, Amontef closes the hatch of the ship and blasts off for Starland. 9 hours later...
Drone, wake up.
Fool. Is it time for breakfast already?
I've just been having a chat with a very interesting and charming Egyptian gentleman. I thought you might like to meet him.
What on earth are you talking about?
The Egyptian ship, my dear drone. It docked 20 minutes ago.
You're pulling my leg.
No, my dear drone, I'm not pulling your leg. The white beads of the necklace are data storage terminals. Here, look through the lens.
Good heavens. Microcircuits.
The beads are emanation scanners, Doctor, that sensed and recorded the spiritual aura of the kings who wore the necklace. The necklace was brought to Earth by our ancestors and passed from dynasty to dynasty in the hope that it would one day be worn by a spiritually perfect king. A king who would then be replicated and given immortality. Tutankhamun is that king.
Look, you said you didn't know King Tut's tomb had been discovered until just a few weeks ago. How did your people lose track of its location in the first place?
The last Egyptian dynasty ended with the death of King Nechneb. When he died, the necklace was sealed in his sarcophagus. 1 year later, on the first day of the new solar equinox, our ancestors returned from Naheshem in a ceremonial funeral ship. As the ship orbited Earth, an inner circle high priestess went down in a small lander. She recovered the necklace, analyzed the white beads, and saw that of all the recorded spiritual auras, Tutankhamun's had been the most perfect and powerful. Placing the necklace in Tutankhamun's tomb, she returned to the lander, contacted the ship, and reported that it was Tutankhamun who would be given immortality. But before she could give the location of the tomb, her transmission was interrupted. She was never seen or heard from again.
Limehouse Express to Starlab.
I'll talk to him, Mora. Well, if it isn't the notorious Wilhelmina Hammersmith.
Don't be tiresome, Foom. I know Amontef is there. We tracked his ship. Now, as you said earlier, let's get down to cases. Peratep is alive and sealed in an airlock. If you don't return the necklace, I'll decompress that airlock and kill her.
I see. How do you want us to proceed?
Dr. Cassidy and Amontef will deliver the necklace in an unarmed ship. Amontef knows my location. And Foom, don't try any of your tricks. Decompression is a singularly horrible way to die.
What are you going to do, Foom?
Elementary, my dear drone. I'm going to beat Moriarty at his own game. Amontef, come with me. I'd like to have a word with you in private.
Two hours later, Amontef leaves Foom's quarters and returns to Starlab Control. From there, he and Mora descend to Launch Bay 15, board the Deep Space Laboratory ship Octavia, and blast off for the Limehouse Express. 9 hours later, the Octavia enters Martian space and moves into a side-by-side position with Moriarty's huge flying wing. As the two ships float in the airless void between Deimos and Phobos, an enclosed metal flex walkway telescopes from the Octavia to the personnel hatch of the Limehouse Express. After pressurizing the walkway interior, Mora stabilizes its atmosphere. A moment later, the two ships open their airlocks.
Amontef!
Peratep, your forehead.
Don't concern yourself, Amontef. The wound is superficial.
Thank Ra for that. Go into the ship now and rest.
You're very pleased with yourself, aren't you, Professor?
And why shouldn't I be? I not only have the necklace, but I've outsmarted Sona Tifum as well.
You're no match for Mr. Foom. Your cruelty defeated him, not your intelligence. You're an ugly little man, Professor. Ugly and arrogant and stupid.
Sticks and stones, Dr. Cassidy. Sticks and stones.
It's time, Professor.
All right. Tell your men to return to their stations.
May I hold the necklace one last time?
Of course, Amontef. I'm as sentimental as the next man, in spite of my overweening ugliness.
Would you like to hold it, Mora?
Why, yes. Yes, thank you.
Professor?
Yes?
Amontef.
Into the ship, Mora. I'll bring the professor.
Professor! Guards! Guards!
Hold his wrists a little closer together, Amontef. Good. There. Watching you walk into Jastrow prison is going to be a pleasure, Professor. Amontef, how did the descendant of an ancient Egyptian high priest manage to become a master of Oriental martial arts?
In much the same way that I became a master of disguise, Mora. Practice. Here, hold my nose.
Mr. Foom!
Shh! You'll wake Piratep.
Why didn't you tell me?
If you had known it was me disguised as Amontef, you might have behaved differently aboard Moriarty's ship. Here, help me peel off this beard. My fingernails are all sort of... Mora?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Foom.
Oh, that's all right. I'm sure I'll be as good as new when they remove the bandages.
What did Amontef say when you told him what you intended to do?
He smiled his most seraphic smile and gave me his blessing. He's quite an extraordinary man, you know. While we were talking, I asked him why the Egyptian civilization was brought to Earth in the first place. And he said, to create a sense of wonder, Mr. Foom. A sense of wonder so compelling as to cause those generations still unborn to look at history with new insight and see the universe with new eyes. Eyes that will one day look back at ancient Egypt and understand what we tried to do there. And on that day, realize that they are looking back into the future.
The Adventure of the Egyptian Necklace was written by Ron Thompson and starred Linda Gary, Chuck Olson, Bruce Philip Miller, and Corey Burton, with special guest stars Philip Clark, John Abbott, Lester Fletcher, Carol Bilger, and Joe Baker. Associate producer Ron Thompson, music director Tom Rounds, engineer Stu Jacobs, assistant to the producer Jim Cook, technical consultant Peter Sky. Alien Worlds was created, produced, and directed by Lee Hansen. The Adventure of the Egyptian Necklace is dedicated to the memories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of England's most famous consulting detective. And so, until next week, this is Roger Dressler, inviting you to join us for our next adventure, Time Clash, from the elsewhere and elsewhen of Alien Worlds.